Well, some big steps there ahead by Riyadh. Let's talk more about it. Joining me now in studio is Ali Al-Ahmed, Director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So as we look at the reforms and the criteria used in this ease of doing business report, why do you think Saudi Arabia was able to improve so much?
I think it has to do with the fact that there are more contacts now the Saudi government is doing. There has been some improvement in the doing business environment, but it has not yet taken hold. The economy, local economy, is not doing well. It's worse now. Even the World Bank said it is basically having zero growth for this 2018 and 2019. So there is a lot of difficulties because this is a practice of basically forcing change suddenly, and I don't think it can be sustained. You can get those rankings improved, but it doesn't matter, if you don't have the economic environment that can actually work for those investors.
So that in terms of really connecting the dots to the reality on the ground, what do you think then is needed to really promote more business and really help drive the economy in Saudi Arabia?
It is important to free the market, and right now it's not a free market. It's dominated by big players, mainly the ruling family. MBS himself is in control of a lot of businesses. So it has not helped small and medium businesses to thrive. You see a lot of businesses closing because they don't have the working force. The employment, in fact, has increased since MBS in the past 2 years. So it's not yet, we have not seen the fruits of this improvement in ranking. These are opinions. They are not related. This ranking, is by outsiders, not by people who live on the ground. So I would take them with a huge grain of salt.
Now, one thing that people have been keeping an eye on is this IPO for Saudi Aramco. There's been a lot of back and forth about its valuation, when it's supposed to happen. But then given the recent attacks and what we're seeing in terms of oil prices fluctuating, where do things currently stand with this?
The IPO has been delayed. It will be delayed. I think there is a huge resistance inside the country for this because historically any sort of move toward something like that has resulted in not only in failure but in complete chaos in Iran, and we saw it in Egypt. The oil is a national asset, and any attempt to sell it to the outsiders has basically led to the collapse of regimes in the region. So I think it's not going to be easy to do it. The Saudis are not that organized yet.
And we know that in 2016, we know that the Saudi Vision 2030 was really launched to try and reduce the country's dependency on oil and really diversify its economy. Which sectors is the kingdom looking at? I
think the tourism is number one because we don't have an industrial base. We have the number one really asset is the holy places, Mecca and Medina, and some tourism. I'm not talking about, beside that, we don't have real, Saudi Arabia is not a touristic destination. It doesn't have the beaches, it doesn't have the weather, it's very hot, and the services and the infrastructure in the country is not hospitable to tourists. But Mecca and Medina, religious tourism is going to be a key factor in improving the non-oil revenues. And of course, the government is planning to privatize the health sector and impose greater taxes. So that will be another way to bring revenue for the government.
And we know that the government also has its so-called Davos of the Desert, the Saudi Future Investment Initiative. We know it's taking place this year. A lot of companies and countries boycotted in response to the backlash from the Jamal Khashoggi murder. What are the expectations this year?
I think this year they are going to get something. It's not going to be what they expected. We have Richard Branson pulled out, but the American government, the state is going. The India, Modi is going to be the keynote speaker or the guest of honor. So they do have some successes in attracting international, but it has not yet translated to actual investment. The investment in 2018 were lower than 2017, foreign investment. So, and 2019 is not looking any better. So we are not seeing those numbers yet. Saudi Arabia has a history of a lot of smoking screen, but at the end of the day, you don't see really something happening. And that's just the history of the country so far, including that Vision 2030. We have heard some similar things about what they call the 5-year plan, which has not translated to much in the history of the country.
Well, thank you. Certainly a dose of reality. Thank you so much. Ali Al-Ahmed, the Director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs.